Hello and welcome to another one in our series, Breaking Down Barriers. My name is Chris Igwe, and this series, Breaking Down Barriers, is inspired by my book, Breaking Down Barriers, my journey from a small African village to the world stage. And what I do is I just take you through a short chapter, give you my thoughts, ideas and insights, and see how that relates to your own life. And hopefully you can implement it in some way, even if you just take a little nugget out of it. So what are we going to talk about today? Well, this is one which is, I guess, fundamental to the way in which we need to grow day by day in whatever we are doing. And the title of this particular one is Do the Boring Stuff. Do the boring stuff. Now, I'm sure like me, you've done boring things. But why do I say do the boring stuff? Well, kind of to bring it to the end so you don't forget what I wanted to say, by doing the boring stuff, it gives you the foundation on which to build your future life, career, experience. And if nothing else, in a given situation, it shows you how the building blocks of something else is created. So for example, in my chapters, I give you my comments, thoughts, and experience around something, and then I give you a little story so that you can see where it relates to what you've been doing. And actually the story that I use in the book for this particular one, which I don't always share on these particular sessions, because I'd like you to go out and buy the book and see other stories and understand my philosophy, my thoughts, my ideas more specifically. But in the very early stages of my career, I was working for the first time in terms of a real job, as it were, on a major construction project. It was major not only because the client was IBM and they were doing their first PC factory in Europe, and it happened to be on the west coast of Scotland. And I was the engineer, later became assistant and then resident engineer on the project. And my boss, who was the resident engineer, so my company, we'd done the design. And this particular location was a very difficult one in terms of the soil. So we had to create what are called piled foundations. So you drive piles into the ground until they hit bedrock. And of course, when they hit bedrock, that's great. But how do you know that that is stable enough to carry a building? So piled foundations driven, my boss said to me, Chris, you are going to be monitoring the results of this particular piled foundation. So a few piled foundations were done, concrete was set around it. You then have to test it. You test it with weights to make sure or monitor if it goes down. If it goes down, by how much? And I can tell you that that ranks right up there on the Richter scale as the most boring and unpleasant thing that I have done. Boring because you have to wake up. I had to wake up every 3 hours on a 24-hour basis. So I didn't sleep for pretty much a day. Every 3 hours, you have to then go check the monitor, see if it's moved and record it accurately and properly. If it hasn't moved, how much more boring can it be? And it hadn't moved. Thankfully, I mean, that was the essential result, is to know that it didn't move. But I had to check it every 3 hours. And it was in the middle of winter, freezing cold. You got to do what you got to do. So I did it. And the piled foundations continued and the superstructure was built and everything else, and it was all fine. But that was the most brain-numbing experience I've had. I've done others. I've worked in factories during the summer. I've done paper rounds, which is not so bad. You know, get out on your bike and you run around and you distribute papers. But what is it that you have done or are doing that is really boring, but at the same time, very boring, but teaches you something? My work on that construction site taught me the rigor, the importance. If I didn't take those measurements accurately, if I didn't wake up in time to go and do those monitorings, that would have been catastrophic. I can't think of what might have happened, anywhere between getting fired or the building later on not performing the way it should. Do the boring stuff, but when you do the boring stuff, there's a responsibility attached to it. Whether in my case it was doing a paper round and making sure I delivered to the right places those particular ones. Some people I know, for example, are delivery drivers. They drive for Amazon and for others. I know it's not the most exciting job to do. I know it's not the most important one. Or food delivery services. Yes, to get money. I understand that. But they're not the things that you necessarily feel I was born to do that. I'm sure you'd want to do something else. But knowing how those deliveries are, making sure they get to the right place, there are many, many things in life that we do that are incredibly boring. So to give you a little bit of a perspective, this is from Sonia Parker. And she's an author and says, you have to do the boring stuff to get the good stuff. You have to do the boring stuff to get the good stuff, because once you've worked through the boring stuff, understood fundamentally or foundationally how it works and why it is, and why by understanding how that process works, how you can be even more effective later on in life. So for me, coming back to my civil engineering experience, knowing the importance of doing stuff that is not great, but the testing, the need to know that if you test and you test properly and you have the right dimensions, if it was wrong, you'd have to then adjust it. But that was a really important role that I held. So doing the boring stuff, yes, it's tedious. Yes, it's not what you want, but it gives you rigor, it gives you discipline, it gives you all the things that you need in the future to grow and to understand how things work. And if nothing else, it gives you discipline. Discipline of yourself, discipline of other people, and discipline of the process. So I'm sure, like me, many of you have done summer jobs. You've maybe worked short time or short term in a particular location. Maybe you've done other jobs to sort of put money together to help do something that you need, maybe extra for going on vacation, being with a family, paying for something. There are things that are just incredibly boring, brain-numbing, not exciting, but nonetheless, we have to do it. So I'd encourage you to do it with a different perspective. As I was growing up, I didn't really see the need, and quite frankly, I wasn't excited by it. But at least I knew the reason I was doing it, apart from that, my civil engineering experience, but if I was doing a paper run or paper round or delivering, it was just to get money. At least I had the motivation. So if I did it right and did it well, I got paid. If I didn't, maybe my boss would have a discussion back in those days where you got paid cash for doing whatever you were doing. So I encourage you, do the boring stuff, enjoy doing the boring stuff, and teach others to do the boring stuff by helping them understand that there is a reason for it and it's a foundational piece of their experience. I hope this has resonated. Please feel free to like, share, and comment, and I look forward to speaking to you again very soon. Thank you.